Okay, I'm a bit late talking about this, but it's been on my mind. I just had to because I think it's so fascinating. I wanted to talk about Casey Neistat's commercial that he did for the Oscars. Anybody who doesn't know Casey Neistat, he's a very famous YouTuber, mostly known for his daily vlog that he ran for almost 2 years. For his very unique take on vlogging, that he's sort of a rich guy who goes around and just shows his daily life, but from the perspective of a filmmaker who is able to take all these more advanced techniques in filmmaking and editing and apply them to the mundanity of a YouTube vlog. He's really interesting, and I'm a big fan of his work. And he made a commercial for the Oscars, which was for Samsung. And when they approached him with this idea of doing a commercial for them, he said he wanted to make it about YouTubers, about all the filmmakers on the small scale who are not being honored by the Academy Awards, because he's very passionate about YouTube and very opinionated about it, and has a very strong attachment to it, because this is a guy who, unlike most YouTubers are people who want to be working in the big league industries but are stuck working in the smaller league industries. Whereas Casey Neistat is someone who went from that big industry, who had all the connections in film, who was working professionally for HBO and doing commercial work for years, who looked at all that and said, YouTube is more interesting, and the things I can do with YouTube are closer to, my vision and what I want out of my filmmaking. And so he left that world to come to YouTube, and considers that, something he has more pride in than his older work. So, what's so fascinating about this is that he made a behind the scenes vlog about the creation of this commercial. And I'd seen that vlog before the commercial came out. And the vlog shows it as this really massive production, a really big, expensive production. They had a huge crew. They've got makeup people. He had a stand-in guy. They got cue cards. They got someone wetting the concrete. They've got, because it was filmed in a parking lot, they've got someone, making it wet and dramatic. They've got all these lighting guys. They've got just tons and tons of money. They've got the cinematographer who worked on Fight Club, or a cinematographer who worked on Fight Club. I don't know if it was the guy. He said it was a guy who worked on Fight Club was shooting this thing. So, yeah, it's a huge production. A really big budget Samsung production. The hilarious part of all that is that then you watch the commercial, and for the most part, it's just Casey Neistat standing in front of a camera giving a speech for a minute. It's intercut with all this footage of people making YouTube videos, which is obviously all fabricated. Now, that's a whole other part of the production, is creating all these miniature scenes of people making YouTube videos, except you can see the cameras they're filming it on, which are all Samsung phones, And, there's all that aspect. But when you think about just the scale of the production of just the section that is Casey Neistat standing in a parking lot talking to a camera, and what struck me is Casey Neistat could have made this by himself. It wouldn't be exactly like this, because they couldn't have had the wet concrete. They couldn't have had the lighting effect that happens at the start of the commercial, where all of the lights in the parking lot come on in sequence, which is a cool effect, don't get me wrong, but totally unnecessary for the message here. Casey himself has made videos that look as good as this, have as strong of a message, are as good of an advertisement, that he shot by himself by holding a camera. In fact, like I'm doing right now, I'm using a GorillaPod because I learned this technique from Casey Neistat. Having a GorillaPod with your camera on top of it, and he could have just held it and delivered a speech just as good. He could have found an interesting, dramatic location in New York to film it in. He could have just walked down the street with a camera, found a nice spot, given this speech, and it would have been just as good. He's done dramatic lighting turn on moments in videos before, just in his office and stuff. He could do this no problem by himself with no budget at all. And what's so funny about it is that that's kind of the message of this commercial. He's advertising YouTube as like a platform for everyone that anybody can do just by having a phone. Just as long as you have the bare minimum requirements to put video together, you can create a film that will be interesting and move people. And he's conveying that message within a commercial that is very old school Hollywood. That's just like this like $1 million commercial, maybe more, whose message is, I could have done this with my cell phone. You know, it's so it's hilarious, and I'm sure Casey completely appreciates this irony, because Casey is always saying how he doesn't respect Hollywood because of the fact that he sees it as an elitist. He sees traditional film as an elitist art form because it forces you to have such an incredible amount of money to create a product. Like, you can't just make a feature film if you don't have an insane level of connections and budget behind you. So he much more respects YouTube, which is just people sharing their vision as best they can with what means they have. So yeah, to see that message delivered in the package in front of the Academy Awards, like it's in the middle of the awards show, and Casey shows up, using their techniques to deliver the message about how worthless this whole idea is of traditional film, and how there's this new wave of filmmakers who are have the most interesting thing to say right now, and he's and doing so in a commercial he could have shot himself. It was just really fucking hilarious and ironic, and obviously it's no skin off Casey's bones because Samsung paid for it. It's not like he funded this commercial. It's just really funny to imagine that he could have sent the same message. And I mean, he does send the same message on his own YouTube channel, which probably has as much reach as I don't know how many people watch the Academy Awards, on TV, but Casey Neistat gets millions of views per video sometimes. So, he's probably sent this message to as many people. It's just that in order to take that message to this other audience, this people who are clearly not the YouTube people, he had to package it in a way they would understand, which is a millions of dollars commercial, that he could have shot himself. Anyway, that's all.